Mark had always found solace in long drives. The open road stretched before him, offering a sense of freedom that was hard to come by in his daily life. On this particular night, he found himself traversing a desolate countryside, far from the bustling city. As the hours passed and the moon ascended to its throne in the night sky, Mark's solitude was broken by the sight of a solitary figure on the roadside. A hitchhiker, their thumb outstretched in silent plea for a ride. Mark hesitated but eventually pulled over to offer the stranger a lift. The hitchhiker was a woman, her face concealed by a tattered scarf, and her voice barely above a whisper. She thanked Mark for his kindness and settled into the passenger seat. The silence that followed was palpable, and Mark couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. A few miles down the road, the hitchhiker began to speak. Her words were cryptic, a series of disjointed phrases that made no sense. She spoke of ghosts and lost souls, of roads that led to nowhere and eternal darkness. Mark's unease grew with each passing mile, and he considered pulling over and asking the woman to leave. But before he could act, the hitchhiker turned to him, her eyes devoid of emotion. "You're not alone," she whispered, sending shivers down Mark's spine. "They're here with us." Mark's heart raced as he scanned the empty road. There was no one in sight, but a growing sense of dread settled over him. He demanded that the hitchhiker explain herself, but her response was even more chilling. "They're in the car," she said, her voice taking on an otherworldly quality. "They've been waiting for you." In a moment of panic, Mark swerved the car to the side of the road and ordered the hitchhiker out. She complied, disappearing into the night without a word. As Mark drove away, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The rearview mirror revealed nothing, but the sensation of being followed persisted. With every mile, the feeling of dread grew, and Mark's sanity began to unravel. When he finally reached his destination, Mark was a trembling mess. He rushed inside, locking the door behind him, but it offered no comfort. The feeling of being watched remained, an unshakable presence that haunted him long into the night. Was the hitchhiker merely a disturbed soul, or had Mark unwittingly invited something more sinister into his life? Only time would reveal the true nature of the haunting hitchhiker. Thank you for hearing our first story. Before we continue, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Emily had always been a night owl, and on this particular evening, she found herself on a winding, desolate road that cut through the heart of the countryside. The moon cast eerie shadows, and the hum of her engine was the only sound that broke the silence. As she rounded a bend in the road, Emily's headlights illuminated a lone figure standing by the roadside. A hitchhiker, their thumb extended in a silent plea for a ride. Despite a nagging sense of unease, Emily decided to pull over and offer assistance. The hitchhiker was a young woman, her presence oddly unsettling. She climbed into the passenger seat without a word of thanks, her eyes fixed on the road ahead. Emily tried to make conversation, but the hitchhiker remained silent, her gaze unwavering. After a few miles, Emily noticed something odd. The hitchhiker's reflection was no longer visible in the rearview mirror. She turned to look at her passenger, but the seat was empty. Panic surged through Emily as she scanned the car, but there was no sign of the hitchhiker. Terrified, Emily pulled the car to the side of the road and jumped out. She searched the area but found no trace of the mysterious woman. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Confused and shaken, Emily continued her journey, her mind racing with questions. Had she picked up a ghostly hitchhiker, or was it a figment of her imagination? The road ahead seemed endless, and the night grew darker. As Emily reached her destination, she couldn't shake the feeling that the hitchhiker's presence still lingered. The unsettling encounter haunted her dreams, leaving her with an unshakable fear of the vanishing hitchhiker. Was it a ghostly apparition or something more sinister? The mystery of the vanishing hitchhiker remained unsolved, a chilling reminder that some encounters on the open road are best left unexplored. Thank you for hearing our first story. Before we continue, please don't forget to like and subscribe. The night was inky black, rain pelted against the windshield of Alex's car as they navigated the desolate stretch of highway. The world outside was a blur of shadows and torrents of water. Thunder rumbled ominously in the distance. As Alex rounded a bend, their headlights revealed a solitary figure standing at the edge of the road, a hitchhiker. The stranger's drenched form was obscured by a tattered raincoat, and they held out a thumb, seeking refuge from the relentless storm. Ignoring the nagging voice of caution, Alex decided to offer a ride to the stranger. The hitchhiker climbed into the passenger seat, a sullen silence enveloping the car. Alex tried to make conversation, but the hitchhiker remained aloof, their eyes darting nervously. Minutes turned into hours, and the storm showed no signs of relenting. Alex couldn't help but feel uneasy about their passenger. Something about the hitchhiker's demeanor set their nerves on edge. As they continued down the rain-soaked highway, a news report crackled over the car's radio. The voice spoke of a dangerous convict who had recently escaped from a nearby prison. His crimes included a string of brutal murders, sending a chill down Alex's spine. An uncomfortable realization struck: they were sharing the car with an escaped convict and serial killer. Panic welled up inside Alex, but they dared not show it. The hitchhiker's gaze never wavered from the road ahead, and Alex knew they had to act cautiously. They pretended to look for something in the back seat, concealing their frantic text to the authorities. Every mile passed like an eternity. As the rain finally began to subside, a police car appeared in the distance, its lights flashing. Alex's heart leaped with relief as they pulled over. With trembling hands, they informed the officers of the hitchhiker's true identity. The police approached the car with caution, their guns drawn. The hitchhiker was apprehended, his capture putting an end to a terrifying manhunt. It turned out that he had been on the run for days, seeking refuge from the law. As Alex watched the police lead the convict away in handcuffs, they couldn't help but shudder at the close encounter with a serial killer. The storm had passed, but the memory of that nightmarish ride with the escapee hitchhiker would forever haunt their dreams.